everyone, welcome back to Kim's Creations. Today I am doing an intro to watercolor. Thank you to the folks who voted, Taylor, Terry, Jennifer, Betsy, Olga, and Kim. And forgive me if I've forgotten your name on there. We had a few people go out there and actually vote, and I totally appreciate that. And thanks for coming out and voting, and I hope you're able to actually join me in this at Watercolor Adventure. So today I'm just going to go over briefly via recording, and I'll post this to my site today, some of our tools that we're going to use. Right now I'm shaking up some masking fluid, and not that we're going to use this in our project, but it gives you an idea of how folks save the white space sometimes. So lots of different things you can use when you're watercoloring. You can use the colors in a tube, right? Just little tubes of color, pigment right in a tube, and you squeeze it out on a tray and put some water in it and make your watercolor that way. This Artist Lofts package is definitely beginners, can be bought at any, gosh, you can get these relatively cheap at Walmart, right? Also, hey, I take these sometimes. They travel well, and they have a variety of different colors in there, and you pop it open and you can mix colors right here in the lid. And you can carry your brushes and everything and take this to the pool and do watercolors with it. It's very handy. So you can use one of these, very cheap. And then finally, if you're into watercolor pencils or trying something new, you can draw and shade and then put the water right over it, which is really a neat way to watercolor as well. I might do a little demonstration with that as well. So I wanted to go ahead and talk about some technique, and then later today I'm also going to think about a project to do with you. But before we do that, I'm going to pull the camera down toward the paper so you can see what I'm doing on the paper. Okay, so first of all, I have two different types of watercolor paper. Watercolor paper is important because it's designed to absorb. It's very thick, and it's designed, if you can see the little ridges, there's little ridges on this paper, designed to absorb the water and the pigment a certain way. Acrylic canvas doesn't work with watercolor very well unless you've actually got plenty of gesso, however you say it, on the canvas. Try to stick with watercolor paper. This is a tablet that I have, and another tablet that I bought. I think this one came from, gosh, I think Walmart sells these. Some tablets aren't really tablets, they're a block. This is a block of watercolor paper. It's sealed, and you have to actually peel it back and peel it off piece by piece. And then some come in actual tablet form, it's a lot easier. So I'm going to take off one of these and use this. I've got a little bit of something on there already. Okay, so I'm going to draw a couple of squares just to give you an idea of three different ways to apply watercolor, basic ways. There's lots of ways. People can get really creative with this, and I've seen a lot of neat things, but I'm just going to go over the three basic ways. Wet on wet, wet on dry, and then dry on dry. And if you want to follow along on this, if you have this stuff and you want to draw out three boxes, wet on wet, wet on dry, and then dry on dry. And you'll hear me using these terms when I'm actually going through the project with you. So, wet on wet, I'm going to use this guy because he is the simplest and easiest to get into. So, I really like wet on wet. It's a great technique for skies and water and all kinds of stuff. So you put down water. Just put the water down, wet it up really good. So that's your wet part. Right? And then you just grab some color, whatever color you want. Let's do a blue sky. And I really enjoy the wet on wet, again, because it's just fun to see what the paint's going to do. So then you just kind of do the wet on wet. And you can go dark to light, right? And you know what? The best way to go light, paper towel, excuse me. The less pigment you get on your brush, watch this. the lighter the color becomes. Now with watercolor, what's interesting with watercolor is it's not like acrylic in that you can add white and then get the same effect. You use the white of the paper for your white. So if you want a dark blue, you're heavy with the pigment and the paint, and if you want a light blue, it's more water, less pigment, right? And you can actually, with watercolor, if you don't like what you've done, you can pull it up. Watch this. Look at that. So there's just a real light hue of blue there. So that's wet on wet. The fun thing about wet on wet, let me keep doing this. I'm gonna put up, I just put down a bunch of water. And this is a neat thing too I like to do. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna go for a different color. So there's a glob of water on my paper. Let's put down some yellow. And hopefully the yellow will mix with it. You can see it creeping. There's a creep. I like the creep. So I'm gonna dab it there, dab it there, dab it there. Maybe even dab it on my blue. So I'm dabbing it. It's hard for you to see this, I know. Let's get you closer. See if I can get you closer. And then throw a dab of paint, a dab of water right on top of it. And you can see it. And it's fun to make that sound too. And then when that dries, that's a really neat effect. And it actually looks like little snowdrops coming into this blue from the water. It's creeping, see?